I also have to allow me to recognize Prime Minister, Mr. Craig Oats. He too is part of my Rossi's family. I think he has just found the right place. He has always been an activist, a big active young man. And together we work to make Rossi the best football team in the region. But today is here, and welcome to the family, Craig. To all the laborites from all around Montego Bay, but especially West Central St. James, shower laborites. I will not be. I'm going to be short again, I'm going to give you a chart. But first, I think it's important to remind our people, and I'll go into them long, as others are listening, where we are coming from in St. James. The effort of this Prime Minister and his cabinet and the team in St. James has been to transform St. James. Never in the history of Jamaica's independence has such an effort been made to bring development to St. James. I will not go through them, but I'll just list them. In sheer dollar volume, the Prime Minister said to me, and I have to tell him, I need more. But he said to me all the time, if I put more money in Montego Bay, I sink that time. Not quite sure, because we're neglected for generations. And the development that have come are important in setting the stage for growth of Jamaica. We started in Sancton International Airport. It is now one of the largest airports in the Caribbean and the finest airport, and it's under continuous expansion. The government of Jamaica and the concessionaire have spent over 400 million US in building out and providing a fine airport for St. James, which brings in millions of tourism. And we have a tourism minister bringing tourists. And that's just one part of tourism. I named the big ones. We have in the state currently started some 7,000 houses for workers in St. James. That is more housing starts in St. James than ever was done in the previous 50 years of independence. You drive around Montego Bay, you spot one little old house here, one little bit there, Francis Isabella, Portobello, two others. We are starting 7,000 between Estuary and the South area, and over in Edmondville in 7,000. So that young Jamaicans who come to live in St. James will find a fine place in which to live, reside, and a dynamic and healthy community. Prior to that, despite of all the economic development, Jamaicans who come to Montego Bay had to form an informal settlement. We were famous for having the most informal settlements at one time, 24, 21 informal settlements, including the largest in my constituency between North and Providence. We have nearly 10,000 houses, which is bigger than Greater Portmore, as informal settlements. We are currently building the perimeter road for Montego Bay, talked about for nearly 20 years, costing over $374 million to provide the basic infrastructure to bring prosperity to Montego Bay and across the island. And Dr. Tufton mentioned, I'll repeat it. We need to repeat these things. When the corner relay is finished, it will be the finest hospital in the Caribbean region. It took money, was it because of neglect? I will speak briefly now. Dr. Tufton spoke of it as a minister. When I am member of Parliament in St. James, I can tell you, I didn't go to the hospital and I absolutely had to go there. From the time I was in Parliament Secretary, because the hospital was in a state of decay, the elevators were falling apart, the air conditioner was going bad, and then I know, as a matter of fact, even though I was here, unless I had to go there for a particular patient that was really my friend and someone I need to talk to from the constituency, I did not go into hospital because in a state of great disrepair. This government, this minister, I commend him, took it apart, rebuilt it, and St. James will have one of the finest hospitals in the Caribbean and in Jamaica. It reflects the work and direction of this Prime Minister, who invests intelligently, sensibly, and ensure that we have the foundation for development. My last comment on change is, of course, in crime. When I was given this ministry, half my management team said, Dr. Chang, you can't go there, sir, because the Ministry of National Security is a graveyard for politicians. They are here, they'll tell you. Some came and protested at my home. But with the support of this Prime Minister, we have invested in the security forces. We have provided them the tools, we have increased the numbers, developed the human resources, and they're all fine Jamaicans who want peace and safety. They have responded well to the effort put in by this government. The numbers are clear. The big numbers are there. We have 44% less murders this month, the 5th month of the year, than we had last year. 44%. But I want to listen carefully. This month, in St. James, we had one homicide, a domestic murder. One single murder. There's a time when we were running at one a day. One a day, because we had 335 murders in the year. We'll have 352 days. The weekends when I get up and I get there on the 3 murders, I felt good. Not feel good anybody died, but that was less. We'd walk 2 years of the constituency, and when you went to the yards in Salt Spring, in Norwood, in particular in Flanker, you would walk into a yard, it looked like a butcher, what country people call a butcher stall. Men, women, and children were lying in the yard, bleeding. So, we know it in this town. We understand it. This government invested to give the police transportation. The stories of motor vehicles on Barney Street, robbery going on down the bottom of Barney Street, and when they called the police, the car from the airport tried to get there because they had no radio. Fact. Minister Davis is a former police officer. They had no radio communication. And we had very few officers to put on the road, because we were only about 10,000 officers. The police stations were falling apart. In Sablama, officers were dropping to the floor. Minister Fort knows it well. It's our original town, but she's part of the family in St. James, and one of the 5 that will take St. James to another level. Minister Fort, your town, no. But you know Sablama, like I know that he's a Westmoreland, and that's the factor what the police was in. We have invested an average of $9.9 billion every year to give police better stations, to give them motor vehicles, to give them radio communication, and we've employed more police officers. And we have allowed the police officers to do their job without interference. We trained and selected leadership that have the ability to lead the police effectively. So today, we're not celebrating victory, not even flying the flag of victory yet, but we are celebrating the saving of Jamaican lives by a committed, hard-working young men and women of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. And I say we'll keep it that way, because we are providing the tools to do the job. And that's why we can say that though it is only 5 months in the year, I have every confidence in the leadership of this commissioner, Kevin Blake, his deputies, and the superintendents across the island who work daily to protect Jamaicans and maintain public order. Sometimes we run to a liquor hip. We are a party town, and the officers say, boy, we can't keep the party this week. But we are committed. A commissioner said to me, tell the country, everybody listen, the commitment of this police force is to police all circumstances, from parties, sports events, public events, bar events, and parties. But if there's a challenge, we're going to have to deal with it. And the best way sometimes is keep it quiet for a while. But we work with you. That's the commitment of the police, to ensure that your economic life continue and expand and improve. That's what we want you to do. So, but we want peace and good order, and that is what we see coming, because this government, led by this Prime Minister, made the commitment. When you put that amount of money in policing, in that crash program work, in that making jobs on the roadside, it was giving police officers the tools to maintain order, protect lives, and ensure that Jamaica has a peaceful society. So this month, he speak to it. The world is seeing that now. Between the efforts of the Prime Minister, our ambassador to Washington, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, we are integrated in the tourism sector. More tourists will come to Jamaica, more tourists will come to Montego Bay, more people will get employed, and there will be even greater dynamic activity shown. The jobs are done. But I will not go long on this stuff because my Prime Minister has to talk and I want him to tell you the good news. What I want to remind you of today evening, in a few minutes, everybody in this room, there's a huge body of JLP supporters. There are many party workers in here. And we're having a great evening. And I commend the Minister and MP and our entire team for pulling this together today. And the teams are here. But when you leave here, one thing, you leave with a commitment and a task that you're going to go out there and the song, find your neighbor, find your friend, find your family, find the old boyfriend, find a new one, and make sure they commit that when the Prime Minister and leader, our brogad, say, ring the bell, school call, find everyone, them, get them to the police station, and make sure they put the X beside the bell. That day is not for Dr. Chang, General Secretary. It's not for Homer Davis in South St. James. Ed Bartlett, the great tourism minister in East Central. Era Clark, our man in the Bay. Not for us. It is for the family of the Jamaica Labour Party. And our leader, who must become a Prime Minister for the third term and lead Jamaica into prosperity.